I have a plan in mind. Let's see if it works according to plan. I thought, first of all, I wanted to address you college students who are in pre-101 in your understanding of bhakti. And so I thought a nice topic would be search for happiness, because that's universal. Why? And the answer to why is it universal? Because it has everything to do with who we are. What does that mean? According to the Vedic texts, the living entity is a tiny fragmental part of the Supreme, like a spark in a big fire. We're like this spark, and there's the big fire. And that's where we come from a big fire. And that big fire, or the source of everything, has three main features or attributes: eternality, knowledge, and bliss. Sat, Chit, Ananda. Maybe you've heard those phrases before, Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat means eternality, or existing eternally. Chit means consciousness or awareness. It's in the living entity, it's in the supreme conscious, and we're the tiny conscious. And Ananda means pleasure. So we're searching for happiness because it's our nature. Now, problema. What's the problem? We're searching for happiness in the wrong place. Or specifically, we're searching for happiness in the temporary while we're eternal. And so, the pursuit is frustrating. While we find something, senses, searching for sense pleasure, that's the definition of happiness that's on the street, or common for conditioned souls, is it's fleeting, and now you see it, now you don't. And even when you see it, it's not what real happiness is, and then it's gone. Because things of this world are asat as opposed to sat. And we're sat. And the happiness that we want is sat. Or Sat Chit Ananda. That's the happiness. Well, it's here's a nice way of saying the same thing. Very simple. Really simple. New York Post audio, radio, the radio interview with our founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada. Swamiji, you've come to our country. You obviously you came here with a message. What's your message? What's the message that you came to this country to share? Answer: know yourself. Pause. Reporter: know yourself. Prabhupada: know yourself. Meaning, we don't know who we are. Or we think we know who we are, but who we think we are is what we're not. That's the asat. And then to know who you are is sat. But sat isn't just like a twinkling star in the sky, because it's just a star in the sky exists. But we're part of something that's big. We're part of something. We're from a source that we're part of, and that's part of understanding who you are. This little mind bending is philosophy, but it's happiness. Happiness is to know who you are. Say the negative: to not know who you are, and to search for happiness according to who you aren't. Happiness? So we accept some things to be happiness that aren't. And they're flickering and temporary. So even when you get something, wait a short while, however long, and a blink and it's gone. Or even before you blink, it's gone. The happiness just poof, So that's not what happiness is. It's not the happiness that we're seeking either. We're seeking to know who we are, and we're eternal. So happiness is eternal. So how do you find that which is eternal? That's a good question. And that's spiritual life. The path of spiritual life is searching to know who you are, as opposed to, and you have to let go of that which you are not to find out who you are. But when you let go of who you aren't, doesn't mean you vaporize. You just gradually, a nice word that Bhaktisiddhanta uses, Prabhupada's spiritual master, is effaced. The coverings become gradually effaced. You're college kids, so you know what effaced means. And for the rest of us that aren't college kids, effaced is a nice term that's used with coins. When coins rub against each other for a long, long, long time, the imprint on the coin, the name and the date and the, in God we trust and everything, it gradually becomes worn off or effaced. The process of yoga is to gradually efface or wear away the covering of who we're not. And when you take away the covering of who you're not, what's left? Who you are. Because who we are is intrinsic. It's something that has to be discovered within. It's not happiness is out there somewhere. And my senses just have to get in touch with the objects in the right configuration and then buzz, and that's happiness. That's not the correct understanding of what happiness is. So happiness is within. And when happiness is within, it permeates like the rays of the sun. It permeates everything. Happiness goes everywhere. Becomes who you are. Place of happiness. And to illustrate this, I wanted to go into part 2, and that is during this whole month, some of you know today is a full moon. Did you notice last night it's almost full moon? Check it out tonight, it's the full moon. Probably, if the sky is reasonably clear, really bright too. It's the Purnima or Sharat Purnima. And during this whole month, in ISKCON, we have a month-long festival. Maybe you can see down in the front here, there's a picture, a photo of Mother Yasoda binding Krishna with rope. Damodara, Damodara. A rope is tied around his Dhamma, his waist. Udara. Damodara, that's one of Krishna's names, is Damodara, who was bound around the waist by the ropes of Mother Yasoda. And it's a wonderful pastime, and I'm not going to narrate the whole pastime because we have a whole month to hear the pastime. I want to do something else this evening also. But for the whole month, we're honoring this pastime. And what's special about this pastime? It's a mother, sounds like, modern sensibilities would be grated because there's Mother Yasoda, she's got a rope and she's going to tie up her son. Boo. Child cruelty by mother. But during those times, when Mother Yasoda's times, 5,000 years ago, it was not like to hurt the child, it was to restrain a child that don't be naughty. So you can see Krishna's resisting, but Mother Yasoda is bigger and a little compelling. So she got long rope. And she tried to tie the rope around Krishna's waist. This is the pastime. And she got a lot of rope. And when she tried to tie the rope around Krishna's waist, it was 2 inches too short. 2 inches too short. So she did math, and she got a longer rope and tied a longer rope to the other rope, and then tried to put it on Krishna's waist. And guess what? Again, 2 inches too short. Now, Mother Yasoda is the wife of a king of cowherds. They got a lot of rope for cows. So she went to the store and got lots of rope and tied all the ropes together and tried to put that around Krishna's waist. And guess what? 2 inches too short. So she was bewildered, like, what's going on? His rope, his waist is like the size of my fist. And this rope is hundreds of yards long. It's not going around his waist. And not only that, the second thing is it's always 2 inches too short. What's going on? And what's going on is the Damodara or Krishna is all powerful. If he doesn't want to get tied up, you're not going to tie him up. But then Mother Yasoda started to feel anxiety. And Krishna detected the anxiety of his mother, so he allowed himself to be tied up. There's some details I'm skipping over. You have a whole month to hear the details. Krishna withdrew some of his potencies and exhibited some of his other potencies, because everything happens from the potent or source of potency, and his potencies are exhibited or withdrawn. So he exhibited his Kripa Shakti. So Mother Yasoda could bind him. And Mother Yasoda bound him with rope around the waist, Damodar. Technically, the pastime that we honor for a whole month should be called, or might be called, Yasoda Damodar Leela. Now, why do we spend a whole month with this? It's nice story. Why do we spend a whole month with this? One reason that we spend a whole month with this is that she, Mother Yasoda, is not like one of us. She is a Nitya Siddha, Siddha means perfect. She's an eternally perfected entity, being. So one might ask, why does an eternally perfected entity or being or person come here to the material world? Like, forget it. That's not a nice place. Why come here? We may want to get liberation from the material world. And she's coming here? Please explain. The explanation is she, to assist Krishna in his pastimes, is exhibiting to the world what it is like to have attachment not to the temporary, but to the eternal. It's an acharya principle, but teach by example. So eternally perfected souls, not just Mother Yasoda, all of Krishna's associates, they're eternally perfected. That's pretty amazing. Not just like up there, but perfected souls. Perfected in the sense, specifically, that their love and their sense of shelter is unshakable. Because Krishna is their place, their attachment, asakti, nice Sanskrit word, it means attachment. And their ashraya, or their place of shelter, is in that which is eternal. What's it like to not be attached to the temporary? So the associates of Krishna come and demonstrate by their behavior and by their speech and by their lives what's it like. And this wonderful, wonderful pastime is celebrated for a whole month. Mother Yasoda loves Krishna, and Krishna loves Mother Yasoda, and there's a loving exchange where he's not going to be bound up if he doesn't want, and when he sees the love that she has, he allows himself to be bound by her love. He's not bound by her ropes, he's bound by her love, and that's the lesson. And it's such a sweet and transcendental and instructive lesson that for a whole month, I believe we're going to sing the Damodara song at the end. Yes? Okay, good. So you'll get a chance to participate in offering a lamp or a candle or something to Damodar, and we'll sing the Damodar song. It'll magically appear on the screen over there. Not now, later. And that's happiness. So let's go back to square one. Search for happiness. Happiness is found in the reservoir of happiness. You don't find water in a desert, by definition. A desert is a place without water. You don't find happiness in a place where there's no happiness. It may have, like a desert, it may appear to be that there's water, but it's not. It's the sun reflecting on silicon, and it looks like water. It's just a reflection. Now, there's something that exists. Water exists, but water's not in a desert. Similarly, happiness exists, and search for happiness is something that everybody wants because it's who we are. We're searching for who we are and being connected with the source of who we are, the reservoir of all happiness. And this month's pastime, the Damodar Leela, is that happiness Mother Yasoda finds. Look how happy she looks. It's not just that she got to bind Krishna, it's her love for Krishna as a mother, which is another topic. How can God be your son? Or there's a nice description. Now, this is now for the people who've been around a while. There's a nice description in Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that describes a man, a Vaishnava, a devotee of the Lord, who worshipped Lal Gopal, a deity of Krishna in his childhood form. And he worshipped with such love that he was granted a position in the spiritual world as in a parental affection mood with Krishna, because his bhava, or his spiritual emotion, carried him, once he left the temporary body, carried him to that spiritual position. Now that's unique, but we're all going to leave this body. It's temporary after all. So where are we going after this? And according to the teaching of Bhagavad Gita, where we're going after this depends on what your mind is fixed on. Here it is in Sanskrit. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam jajatante kalevaram. Kalevaram, absolutely certain. Whatever the mind is fixed on, smaran, bhavam, whatever the mind is fixed on at the end of this body, ante kalevaram, that's where you're going. That is to say, the gross body finished, subtle body not finished. What's the subtle body? Subtle body, Bhagavad Gita teaches us, is mind, intelligence, and false ego. We haven't seen a mind. We know that it exists. We haven't seen an intelligence. We know that it exists. And we haven't seen our dear friend, false ego. But we know it exists. And the subtle body endures beyond the gross body. And whatever the mind portion of that subtle body is fixed on, that subtle body then carries the soul to the next destination. That's where we're going to go. So whatever the mind is fixed on, that's where you're going to go. It's kind of like, how do we get here? We came from different places. I came from quite a faraway place. But there was a plan, and zoom, zoom, here we are. And then afterwards, we're going to go somewhere. And it has everything to do with where the mind is fixed on. Now there's legs, and there's hands, and there's the other parts of our body that are going to take us there, but it's what the mind is fixed on. And it's a principle. The principle of yoga that trains us how to fix the mind on the Supreme, so that when the body's finished, we go to the Supreme. We are connected, just the connection isn't so strong. And as the connection becomes stronger and stronger in the course of abhyasa or practice, yoga practice, then one can make that connection with the Supreme permanent. That's Krishna consciousness. So one additional thing I wanted to do, that the purpose of giving you this additional thing is for both our, our regular practicing devotees and the college students, particularly the college students, introduce you to this nice Srimad Bhagavatam. Notice this is one volume, and it's Canto 1, and there's 12 cantos. Srimad Bhagavatam is a substantial text. And in Canto 1, Chapter 7, there's a discussion about Vyasadeva. Here's a nice painting of Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva is, one of his qualities is he's Tri Kala Gya. Tri Kala, 3 phases of time, past, present, future. Gya, he's knowing past, present, future perfectly. We don't know even what's at any time perfectly. He knows past, present, and future perfectly. So he didn't have to look into a crystal ball. He just exercised his looking into the future capacity. And he saw, Vyasadeva saw that Kali Yuga was approaching. That means the time when Krishna was present was towards the end of the previous Yuga. Yuga is a period of time. And at the end of that Dwapara Yuga, it was soon coming as Kali Yuga. So I'm not going to go into it too much, but Kali Yuga is a dark age. It's an age of darkness, where good qualities are diminishing rapidly. So one of those better qualities is good memory. So Vyasadeva knew that in Kali Yuga, memory shrinks. So he very kindly took it upon himself to take the knowledge of the Vedas that was previously available through sound, Shabda, Brahman, sound vibration, and write it down. And not only wrote it down, but he took the whole Veda and broke it into parts to make it a little easier. 4 main parts, Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva Veda, and then the explanations of those, called the Smritis. The Smritis have different divisions, but largely it's histories. And then he wrote a summary of the whole thing. That was his own composition called Vedanta Sutra. It's a very celebrated text, very difficult to understand because sutra means code. It's like when I go to a new place, I have to ask somebody what's the password for their Wi-Fi. And if they don't give me the password to the Wi-Fi, I can't access the Wi-Fi. Maybe like a really good Wi-Fi. Without the password, I can't access it. The sutras are like passwords. They're little codes. They're not easy to understand. But compressed within those little codes is all of the Vedas. And there's 555 of those codes that has all the Vedas. Vast, compressed into little codes. So he wrote Vedanta Sutra to summarize the whole of the Vedas. Then, as anyone that does a project, maybe in school you have projects, or maybe something, maybe in the workplace you have projects. It may take a long time to complete the project. When you complete the project, it's very natural. You step back. How'd it come out? Some of you cook. Somebody cooked for all of us this evening. So you're going to be interested. Did you like it? How did it come out? It's natural. So Vyasa did that. After all this compilation, he sat back and considered, how did it come out? And as he was introspecting like that, he felt this pinch in his heart that said, something's not right. He was feeling dissatisfied. No, it was purposeful that he was feeling that feeling. And as he was feeling that feeling, his spiritual master, Narada Muni, who has an uncanny ability just to show up at the right time, say the right things, know what's going on even without having to ask any questions. Narada's a very special person. So Narada just came zooming in, playing his Veena, and said, Vyasa, you don't look so good. He didn't use those language, but what's wrong? And Vyasa said, I don't know what's wrong, but you're omniscient. You must know what's wrong. Can you tell me what's wrong? And he said, yeah, I can tell you what's wrong. You get an A in your exam. You compiled all the Vedas flawlessly. However, in the course of doing that, you made inordinate emphasis on fruitive activities. Everyone here in the room knows what the word karma means. So there's a section of the Vedas called Karma Kanda. Kanda means section. The section of the Vedas that deals with fruitive activities. You do this, you get an upgrade. You do that, you get another upgrade. You do that one, you get another upgrade. Everyone knows the program. The material world is a reflection of people trying to do those things. Too much emphasis. People are already inclined to fruitive activities, and you just like fired them up. You got them into more fruitive activities. Kijai. Too much. What you should do, Vyasa, that's what the painting is meant to illustrate. Two things. Situate yourself in samadhi, complete trance and concentration on the Supreme Person. Second thing, what you realize, that should be the basis of this next literature that you compose. Just glorifying the personality of Godhead, corresponding to what you have experienced in your trance, samadhi. And so that's what Vyasa did. He went to the sacred river, sipped some water for purification, sat down in meditation, and that's what the painting is meant to illustrate. He's absorbed in meditation. So I thought, in this topic of search for happiness, he found it, and I wanted to share with you at least one of 4 principal verses that are, in one sense, is the essence of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. The entire Srimad Bhagavatam is 12 of these. It's 18,000 verses. And I'm just going to share you one of 4 verses. It's kind of like a sampler, so you go read Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 7, Verse 5, because I'm only going to discuss 4. But 4, 5, 6, 7, and you'll get the essence of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. And then you have to unpack it. But, so that's what I'm going to be doing on the theme of search for happiness, because Vyasa was feeling unhappy. He was searching for happiness. He did the right thing. When Narada came and said, you should be very satisfied. You're not feeling satisfied. You didn't do anything wrong. You gave inordinate emphasis on karma kanda and insufficient glorification of upasana kanda, or the direct worship of the Supreme Person through loving service. So do that. And here's how you should do it. So I'm going to read from Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 7, verse number 4. Here's the Sanskrit. First two lines, then the second two lines. Bhakti yogena manasi. Manasi means the mind. Bhakti yogena manasi. He fixed his mind in trance in bhakti yoga. Bhakti yogena manasi. Samyak pranihate malay. His mind became perfectly fixed. Samyak means perfectly. Perfectly. Engaged his mind in the source of everything. And then he had an experience. Apashat purusham purnam mayam cha tad apashrayam. Apashat. He saw purusham purnam. Purusham means person. Purnam means complete. So he saw the Supreme Person in full. Sakshat. Purusham Purnam. Then Mayam Cha Tad Apashrayam. He saw Maya under his shelter, Apashrayam, or behind him. So you just break it down a little bit. Following the lead of our acharyas, when he saw Purusham Purnam, it means he saw everything. Matter and spirit emanating from the supreme source of matter and spirit. Because Purna means everything, complete. So he saw the Supreme Person, and he saw the energies of the Supreme Person. He saw the expansions of the Supreme Person and the source of emanation of both, matter and spirit, knowing it completely in his trance of meditation. And the second part is Mayam Cha. Maya means the illusory energy. Now he was able to see the Supreme Lord, the source of everything, because Maya was Tadapashrayam, was behind him. Normally we don't see because Maya is in between. And we see Maya. We should know that behind the facade or the covering is the source of that covering. There's a very nice teaching that says the same thing in a different way. It has to do with sound. And one of the presentations I'm going to be making at universities this semester is Mysteries of Sound. And I won't go into it because of time. But just like right now, sitting in the room, you can hear the air conditioning or the blower of the air conditioning. I can't see it, but through the sound I can understand there's something. And by intelligence and experience, I know what that sound is. It's a fan. And fan, most likely, because we're in Virginia, it's an air conditioner fan. And so we're a little comfortable instead of uncomfortable because of the air conditioner fan. Or, so that's an example. Behind something, there's a source of that something. And if you understand behind everything, there's a source of everything. There's a source of that thing and every other thing. Indirectly, you can understand the presence of the source. So there's something that you perceive with any one of your senses. Sound being one of them. Or any one of the other senses. Just like tonight's a full moon. Check it out. I'm sure it's going to be spectacular. Bright. What's that? It's a light. It certainly is coming from a place. And the place, there's different ideas of what that place is. Modern science says this, and the Vedas say that, and that's okay. There's different perspectives. But behind that light of the sun, there's a source of light. Where does the source of light come from? What is that? What is the source? So it's philosophy to ask such questions. But the process of yoga is not just philosophy. There's a type of yoga called Sankhya Yoga or Gyan Yoga, where there is inquiry, philosophical inquiry into cause and effect of things. Behind this is an effect of something that's the cause. And that cause is likely to be the effect of some prior cause, which is the effect of some prior cause. And the Vedic search is, what's the cause of all causes? What's that cause that has no prior cause? You're a college student, so I'm doing a little philosophy with you. I hope that's okay. Philosophically, you can inquire, but you'll never know by philosophical inquiry alone, because that cause may have a prior cause. So how are you going to know? Or here's, for those of you that are going to be moving on with the club at campus, probably you'll have some exploration of Bhagavad Gita, a nice section of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10. Krishna makes this nice declaration. It is connected with this verse that's on the screen. What existed before you existed? What's the cause of your existence? You don't know, because it existed before you existed. So you can't know. You can guess by logic and reason, by speculative methods. This is the cause. Then what's the cause of that? And what's the cause of that? What's the original cause? You'll never know. By the process of philosophical inquiry, you'll never know. By sense perception, you'll never know. Is it knowable? And the answer is it's knowable. How is it knowable? That which is the source can disclose. What are you doing? You're distracting. Go back to the verse. Go back to the verse. If that which is the source of everything discloses what's the source of everything, then you can know. And can you verify that this is the source when that which is the source discloses? The answer is yes. How? By yoga. Yoga means linking with the Supreme. And when you link with the Supreme, just like, for example, you can describe electricity. Now, I'm not an electrician, but if I contact a live wire, I can tell you I experienced electricity. I don't know too much about electrons. I studied in college, but electricity can do work. So, similarly, according pratyakshav avgamam dharmyam susukam kartam avyayam, according to Bhagavad Gita, one can directly, with purified spiritual senses, one can perceive that which is the source of everything. Small matter. You have to purify your senses. But there's a way to purify your senses. The yoga system teaches it. In other words, you can verify everything by direct experience. Pratyaksha avagamam dharmyam. Susukam, not just sukham, susukam. It awakens the happiness that's of within each one of us naturally. And that's what Vyasa Dev is experiencing. Now, there's several verses that follow where he is describing different features of what his experience is. He's disclosing what has been disclosed to him. That's what Scripture is. It's a disclosure by persons who are perfected souls, like Vyas, and have contact with the source of everything and disclose the source of everything. In Bhagavad Gita, it's Krishna's directly disclosing, I am this. Aham sarvasya prabhavo, matak sarvam pravartate. It's forwards and backwards. I'm the source of everything. Everything comes from me. Iti matva bhajante mam, those who know this, what are you going to do? You make a connection with that which is the source of everything. Bhajante mam, engage in my loving service. Back to our topic, search for happiness. According to spiritual wisdom, that happiness is within us. You don't have to look for it outside. You won't find it outside. If you think you found it outside, know for certain you haven't. It doesn't mean that there's no such thing as an experience of happiness by interacting with others. But what's at the center? If it's this body and the senses and sense objects, it's flickering and ephemeral like a candle in a windy place. It's quite insubstantial and not what real happiness is. So search for happiness is available through that which is eternal. And as one makes one's, using these same terms as before, one's place of attachment and place of shelter. 2. Attachment and shelter. Asakti and ashraya. One who makes those two things in connection with that which is permanent and eternal, that's happiness. And it's not static, it's dynamic, it keeps growing and growing. That's search for happiness done wisely. And unfortunately, most people don't have that wisdom. They continue searching for happiness where there's no happiness and think they found some happiness, and then with a blink, it's gone. That experience is gone, that sense of love is gone, the sense of shelter is gone. The happiness was never substantial to begin with. So I don't know about you. I guess many of you wouldn't be here unless you also wanted happiness that's not flickering. But I know I don't want the flickering kind. No, thank you. I've had enough. And who knows how many lifetimes you've been at it, trying to find it, but not finding it. And so we do it again, try it a different way, and different configuration, maybe this, maybe that. So the Vedas, particularly Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, are especially meant to help us make that connection with the happiness that we're searching for. When that happiness that you're searching for, you find it, the search for happiness is no longer, it's just expanding. Anandam Bodhivardhanam. It's just expanding the ocean of happiness. Ananda, Ambudhi Vardhanam. The ocean of happiness is expanding and expanding. And it's poetic, but it's also true. That's the invitation of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and the topic I thought I would speak about, search for happiness, and why we're spending the whole month on this nice Damodara Leela. So I'm going to stop, and I hope that there's some discussion. If you don't like what I said, that's fine too. If you like what I said, that's fine too. But maybe there's some clarification questions or comments. Yes.
Raj, in this material world, everyone experiences flickering happiness, but what they don't experience is the eternal happiness. How does it really feels like to have eternal happiness, and what is
feel
the
like
properties of that?
the properties?
And if even if they experience, they're not able to kind of make it a point. Okay, this is really transcendental. This is
Try
not
to measure it.
They try to measure with the scale that they have the happiness on their so it's really what I'm trying to conclude is, Maris, like this transcendental happiness, even though we experience sometimes, we're not able to come to the point, okay, this is it, this is it, this is the happiness that we are hankering after. You know?
Well, one way to respond to your question is awakening to real happiness is like the rising of the sun in the morning, meaning it's gradual. Now, the sun is going to rise every morning, whether we want the sun to rise every morning or not. But the comparison is that it's gradual. So if one is pursuing spiritual happiness under the guidance of a wise person or under the guidance of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and a wise teacher, such a person is, and they're sincere. There's three factors: sincere inquiry, proper guidance, and a little bit of patience. Then slowly one can experience a transformation, and that the transformation doesn't require like a spike. Now I know what happiness is, because even that's dim compared to the fullness of what happiness is, or what reality is with a capital R. But one feels a sense, two things. This is Bhaktivinoda Thakur now. The affinity for striving to be the enjoyer of the temporary, it's starting to fade. Its appeal is diminishing. And second is the experience of that which is permanent and sustainable and long-lasting, happiness, becomes more attractive. It's like a dimmer switch. Dial up the brightness, the darkness is dispelled, and the light starts to come on more. It's just, so subjectively you can evaluate by turning the dimmer switch. Similarly, subjectively one can evaluate how I am progressing by affinity for the temporary is diminishing, and attraction for that which is eternal is increasing. And there are different ways that attraction for the eternal might be exhibited. Some persons, for example, may like that experience by mantra meditation. Some persons may like it by musical kirtan. Some persons may like it by trying to understand, profoundly understanding the message of Bhagavad Gita, etc. Or the association of spiritually elevated persons who aren't caught up in just la-la land, the temporary. And I have an affinity for such association. I feel enlivened in such association. So those are symptoms that I'm heading in the right direction. And as I continue heading in the right direction, it's the dimmer switch goes up further. I can start to see in the room things I couldn't see in the room when the dimmer switch was down. I can see and experience things I couldn't experience in darkness. And it's confirmed by the statements of Scripture. That's another very important criterion. Subjectively this, and it matches what's in Scripture. Guru Sadhu Shastra, confirmation. Yeah, we have a microphone. There's some people who are listening online. So if you speak into the microphone,
Okay,
they can
so
hear you too.
I had a question, like why is the entire month of Kartik dedicated to Lord Damodar? Like, is there a reason for it? Or
Yeah, I tried to explain it. It has everything to do with appreciating the quality and depth of the love of Mother Yasoda. She being representative of the residents of Vrindavan. The love of the residents of Vrindavan is unique. So it's the significance is the depth and the quality of her love as a mother. Now, there's many, many, many dimensions to that. Like, God is the Father. How does he have a... It's his mother. He is the source of her. He's the source of everything. So there's puzzles involved in all this. But it has everything to do with rasa, or the mellow of love of the residents of Vrindavan for Krishna. And it's so exalted, we spend a whole month glorifying. Because it takes a while, even doing something every day for a month, to like get it. And then the next year, the next year. So it's the reason why is the love of Mother Yasoda is so exalted. And so that we can internalize, not imitate, but internalize the depth and the quality, the completeness of her love. He who is the controller of everyone and everything is controlled by her love. When he didn't want Mother Yasoda to bind him, she couldn't. But when he saw perspiration and flowers were falling from her hair and her body was trembling, he withdrew his Swarup Shakti and exhibited his Kripa Shakti out of his loving nature. Because she was wanting to be, if my son steals and I don't do anything, what's going to happen when he grows up? That's how a mother thinks. Or good mothers think. So I have to do something. He needs to learn this lesson. Motherly love. And, Prabhupada teaches that in this world, the closest thing to spiritual love is the love of a mother. Selflessly, etc., 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 etc. Giving and giving and giving and giving and giving and giving and no expectation. That's a good mother. There's other kinds. And it's the closest, what to speak of the love of Mother Yasoda for Krishna. In the morning, we were discussing Kunti, appreciating the love of Devaki, and even more exalted than the love of Devaki is the love of Mother Yasoda. Why only 1 month? Yes. Just pass the microphone over that way, please. Just so others can hear who are remote.
Thank you for this very
Thank
nice
you.
class. I had two questions, but I'll ask my first one and then I'll
Okay.
come back if
Okay.
others don't have. So I was appreciating how Vyasadeva was so open to instruction
Yes.
by Narada Muni,
Yes.
and how he paused, reflected, prayed,
Yep.
and then
Yep.
was able to write Srimad Bhagavatam. Sometimes when we receive instructions, it may not be clear cut or linear. So how do we, in the same manner, evaluate an instruction that's given to us?
Well, first of all, nice question. It may take a while. And that's okay. Let their instructions stay with you. Don't let it bounce. Just let it stay with you. And after it stays with you and you're still not feeling you got it, ask again. Ask for further clarification. This is the part that I've understood. This is the part that's still not so clear. Please help me understand. Or I see an obstacle. How do I deal with that obstacle? Or, so you can circle back, and from the source of the instruction, you can ask. But if the instruction, if it stays with you, then here's a nice Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur example. Through the medium of service, in many cases, you'll get an answer to what you don't understand about the instruction. Here's a Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur story. There was a European scholar, a professor, that had read some of Bhaktisiddhanta's writings, and he understood his elevatedness. So he went all the way to his ashram in, Navadvip to meet him and ask him some questions. Big deal, a scholarly fellow with expense and etc. So when he got to see Bhaktisiddhanta, he was occupied. And he said, I'm occupied right now. Could you just, there's some of the devotees over there doing something. Can you just help them? And as soon as you're occupied, and then I'll be able to come be with you. So I don't recall how long it was, for some time. And through the medium of service, when it was time for Bhaktisiddhanta to call him, he said, I got an answer to my question. Through the medium of service. It's not exactly his words, but through service, I came to understand what the answer to my question. Because sometimes it takes practical service to get full light on the topic that's an instruction for you. And then the light goes on. Oh, that's how to do it. And it's not always like that, but it's to stay with it. Here's one. Chant defenselessly. Oh. Can I have another instruction, please? But you stay with it. Because within the instruction, Prabhupada's teaching, within an instruction, the power to carry out the instruction is within the instruction. That's part of one who has faith understands that. So then, when giving instruction, has to be careful when instructions are given, because the person may not have sufficient faith to carry out the instruction, and then become discouraged.
That's very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now she's got a second question. And if there's anybody else who would like to raise something, put up your hand and you'll get the microphone. And if not, you get the second question. Go ahead.
Thank you to everyone. So my second question was that Vyasadeva you mentioned that he was in samadhi. So
yes.
what he's speaking is like samadhi bhasha, like speaking out of or
He's
the
not speaking yet.
Yeah.
He's writing after his samadhi what he experienced while in samadhi.
Yeah. So I was wondering, for us to experience, because he wants us to experience what he has experienced through the medium of his writing, is that what it's going to take? Like for us to...
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, you can get realization before you reach the samadhi stage. It's a little bit like that same example of the rising of the sun is gradual. When the sun starts to rise, you can start to see, in the language, in Vedic language, you can start to see pots and plates. You can start to see things that you couldn't see before, even before it's the full sunrise. And that's, another answer to your question. You can start to see what you couldn't see before. You verify what you see in the light of Scripture, but then you can start to see, oh, I mean, here's a little example for me. My college training, because we've got some college students here, my college training was in math and science. I was in pre-med, and that was like, up to here, math and science. So I know math and science from the modern academic point of view. And then along comes the Vedic point of view, earth, water, fire, air, ether. It's a very different model. And I can say, over a period of time, I start to see through that lens. It's just, it's not that if this one's right, then that one's wrong. And if that one's right, then this one's wrong. It's just a lens. And it's absolutely perfect. And it's for various experiences and readings and teachings of those readings and so forth. It's a really good way to look at things. Very complete and accurate. It's not oversimplified. There's divisions of matter. That's okay. But there's earth and fire. So, and with that combination, you get everything. It's the building blocks to get everything. Just this morning, I was listening to Srila Prabhupada explaining this topic. And the question, not exactly the way that you're asking it, but the question came up, how do we understand that ether is the source of sound? And Prabhupada, he clapped his hands, just like pressed. It's air, but it's also space. Sound, that means space was there. Sound is an indication that space is there, so it's being compressed, or however one might want to think of it, and there's sound. And there's sound in water, because there's also ether in air and in water and in earth. But there's sound because of the presence of ether within all the elements, because it's the subtlest of the elements. And it's just, you wiggle something over here, and then something over there wiggles. Is it cause and effect? So that's just one example. Seeing through the lens of Scripture, it's perfect. It doesn't have, the elements that I, that you learn in chemistry, and calcium and magnesium and this and that. So those things exist, but fundamentally it's earth. And so anyway, it's just a different lens or different model to look at things. And the safety is the lens of the Vedas takes you to Krishna. And the lens of not Veda is not going to bring you to Krishna. what's behind it all, the cause behind the effect, the cause of all causes behind all other causes. Anything else? Oh, I see a hand back there. Maybe we'll make this our last question.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj, for such a wonderful session. So my question is about how do we not become complacent in a spiritual journey? Sometimes we may feel that we are getting less bewildered by material duality, happiness, distress. We are doing okay with material duality, but that doesn't automatically mean we are making spiritual progress. And how do we continue on and not become...
Well, the how-to question, my pablum answer is sadhu sangha. But so I'll unpack that a little bit. There's 9 stages, not processes. There's 9 processes of bhakti. There's 9 stages of bhakti as well. And the first of those stages is preliminary faith, adau shraddha. So when there is preliminary faith, sadhu sangha, using Prabhupada's phrase, is like fanning the spark. That faith is like a little spark, and sadhu sangha is fanning the spark. So how do you take a spark and make it more than a spark? By fanning the spark. Sadhu sangha. By keeping good association, then it will help to fan the spark. Now, supposing complacency is, I stop fanning the spark. And then that what was a spark now may have become a little flame, but it may go out too. So keep good association. Go out of your way. And when you're with sadhus, what do? You do what sadhus do when you're with sadhus. What do sadhus do? Shravanam Kirtanam, or bhajana kriya, or activities of hearing and chanting on topics that are beyond the temporary topics. That's fanning the spark. That's sadhu sangha. And then rendering service unto such persons. Trying to hear, trying to understand, trying to do something out of gratitude for what they have given you. And through supposing there is a tendency to become complacent. An impetus for doing something is there's pain. I don't like pain. We don't like pain. So we do something to mitigate pain. So when the pain gets mitigated, one can become complacent, no problem. So one solution is more pain. And when Krishna shows special mercy, he'll give you a little problem. A prick, a kick, a nudge, a slap, some discomfort. And it may last for more than just a moment. So that's a check on complacency. But why put Krishna through the trouble of giving you an ordeal? So keep in good association. And remain open to that good association. Inquisitive. And keep fanning the spark. On your own, hearing and reading and chanting and discussing, and like this kind of gathering where there's others that are engaged in these activities together. Sadhu Sangha is the medicine for complacency. Okay, thank you all very much for coming this evening. You have something?
I just want to make a comment about your. I was watching the they are so fascinating that the first one that you had
amazing. I think I've heard it 3 times till now.
Really?
And yeah, and every time I'm completely bowled over by all the different things you said. The plant hearing and so many thing around us that moves has vibrations, and it's just not able to hear the people. Our ears are tuned only to certain frequencies. And how the Maha Mantra has affected it very, very much. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to presenting this at different universities. Is it university audiences is a good audience for that topic? And Japa Retreat